I'm not even sure if there's a real life example of someone buying a pair of J's and then getting kicked out of their apartment the next day because they couldn't afford the rent because they used that rent money to buy J's. I know that's an example we use all the time. I'm not sure if that even exists, but just as a parent overall, be reasonable, know your child, know what you can afford, and, just case by case scenario. You shouldn't be, sacrificing your car note or the electricity bill to get them a fresh fit.
Yeah. And there's a old saying in the Black community that say, stop counting my pockets. So
oh man, I don't even know where I want to go with it now. I'm gonna take it a little in a different route. So school started for all everybody. We're probably a week or two into school for most people. But I remember just trying to get everything ready, school shopping, stuff like that. And seeing these commercials and people trying to, there's a whole like big back to school shopping like thing. People had to have that fresh outfit. I remember being, in middle school and high school, wishing I could wear real clothes. But, when people had that chance to have that fresh fit, that was a big thing. And now it's like people have to have like outfits for the first week or two. Like these kids come, like they have a whole wardrobe plan. And it just made me think about how many parents go out of their way to just make these things happen. We take care of our kids. We do what we can. And so my question is, do you feel that you owe your kids the life that you can't afford to give them? What happens when their social expectations exceed your social economic status? So maybe not us, we're not going to break the bank on J's and stuff like that. I know people got 3-4 kids and all the kids are going to school fresh to death on the first day of school. First day of school, you can spend $1,000 on outfits. Like, I feel like these are real world situations, but with social media being the way it is, and there's a lot of pressure for kids to walk around looking like stars. What are parents do? What are your thoughts on people trying to meet these expectations for their kids?
I guess my thoughts are no different than when people try to live outside their means in any other aspect of their life, not just for their kids, but just in anything. I mean, I will say this society puts a lot of pressure, and especially with social media, even more pressure on you trying to keep up with what you see others doing. I've seen the way they doing it for prom now. Have you guys seen the prom pictures? Like they renting Rolls Royces and wearing Ferragamo belts and suits.
Right. You're behind. There's before they go to the prom, there's a thing called a promposal. So people are dropping bread to ask people out to the prom. Like they're renting foreigns and everything just to ask people to the prom.
I'm so glad. So my 1990 Nissan Stanza wouldn't have cut it if I was still in high school.
You would have to sell your car to take Tabitha to the prom.
I mean, we just had a rented tux back then, man.
Yeah, but I think those things are the Instagram exceptions, right? Like every kid's not doing that. Yeah, I don't think that's the norm. Every kid's not doing that. I mean, I've seen just as many, some roses at the basketball game. Will you go to prom with me as the foreigns and everything else? So yeah, there are people that are doing that, but I don't think that's the norm. I think it just gets sensationalized. That's the one that hits, on everybody's feed because it became huge and everything. And so but I think there is pressure for kids to do that because they're seeing that on their feed. They're seeing that that's the super awesome thing, and that's setting the expectation. And so now these kids think, well, I need to be promposed like that. I need to, be over the top and everything for prom. But I think, Jen would get like requests to make prom dresses and she would turn them down. Like, I'm not doing that for a 17-year-old. I'm not making that for a 17-year-old. So, there's a little bit of that to where she's like, I think I'm not putting my name on that. I'm not going to sully my brand with making that for your kid. It's too sexual or whatever. So there was a little bit of that too, where people have to kind of draw the line. Kids are going way out on that. Ferg, you talked about the $1,000 on the first day of school. I mean, or the week of school, having a fit for the whole week. When we weren't in uniforms, we had to go out. We would be fresh like that for a week because you went and bought school clothes and you went school shopping, and your parents had to buy 2 weeks worth of clothes for school shopping. So yes, you had a fresh fit for the first week of school because that was all your school clothes that your parents had bought. You just made sure that you wore them, throughout the week. But then after that, it's all old clothes. So, but my kids, I don't do that. It's like I buy when they need clothes. So, when you mess up your shoes, I'll buy you new shoes. When you grow out of your shoes, I'll buy you new shoes.
But are you going to go out and buy them the most expensivest? What's 2 Chainz expensivest? Like that's my thing.
I'm not, but I can. The thing is,
but you can afford.
They probably are some of the most expensive shoes, but the problem is because I can. Because I can afford the most expensive shoes, right? So, but when it comes down to parents who are living beyond their means and buying stuff, it's. I gave that story of after I hit the club one night in Mobile and I stopped by and, the kids couldn't buy food, but had chains on and a pair of J's on, like they were looking good. It's that idea of I want to look like I have money, but don't. And those kids do that a lot. And unfortunately that's the hood. We call it hood rich for a reason. It's like they want to look like they have money, but knowing that they don't have it in the background, they know that their lights could be cut off, but they got a fresh fit. And I don't know how you change that. I don't know if you can change that because those kids want to feel important. Those kids want to feel like, they're not poor.
But the thing about it is, but if they are, what are your expectations? Do you continue to live outside of your means, trying to appease a 15-year-old who doesn't understand the value of?
Well, I don't know if they're trying to appease a 15-year-old or they're trying to protect their kids from bullying. Because you got to think kids are horrible.
Okay, so you're paying a premium price so your kids can look good enough not to get bullied.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't. But the thing about it is, you're still an adult. You still have other responsibilities that, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but this is why it came to me. Is like, I agree with you. Like, it's not like you're trying to do certain things, but it's like, yeah, I don't want my kid to be the outlier, but at the same time, it's like, but you're working 2-3 jobs. You're doing certain things. You're behind on this. You're behind on rent. You're behind. Just so you can portray this, not even this image, because a lot of times we all know who's broke.
Mm-hmm.
We know that you fresh, but you still broke. And it's not help because we're all broke, but at the same time, could that $200, $300 we just spent on StockX to get some J's go to something else in that household?
It could, but like, remember we were having the whole, spouse over kid conversation, and Byron's like, the kid comes first. And I think that's in those parents' mentality, that's what it is. It's like, I will work those 3 jobs so my kid can have what they need. Need. Well, I mean, want, but I will do that so that I can set my kid up in their mind. I can set my kid up for success in the future, even though that isn't really helping that kid in the future. Teaching financial responsibility actually would be more responsible, right? Teaching emotional intelligence so that your kid understands that, no, nigga, I'm wearing Walmarts because we ain't got it like that. And that's what we can afford right now. But I got shoes on my feet and I'm here at school.
And I told them to wear Bobos. I'm just saying you can wear
it. There's an in between too, because like if you're middle class and your kid is going to a school with people who got it like that, like how you say Hermes belt is $1,200. A belt, a belt with an H on it is $1,200. You ain't gotta buy that. But to speak to what Rozzy was saying is you don't want your kid to be bullied. Okay, maybe not get Versace or whatever, but you can get them Polo or something some in the mid level. So I think you can, like, my daughter hasn't asked for anything yet that I can't afford, but she has asked for things that I'm like, nah, we're not paying that much for it. Like the digital tablet that she draws on now, I want to say the first one she asked for, including the software, was like $1,200. And Tablet was like, no, we're not gonna get that. And we found one that works just as well, which was like a third of the cost. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So speaking to your question, Ferg, what kind of pressure do you feel? I think you asked. I mean, you just have to kind of use common sense and reason. Like, yeah, sometimes you do want to go the extra mile to get your kid, especially if your kid, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They follow directions. They're getting good grades. They're listening to you. They're respectful. Then, yeah, you want to go out the way. You may go out there and buy something that you know is a bit overpriced, but they really want it. They've been doing everything they're supposed to. You get it. But that's not something you can do all the time. And when it comes to the choice of keeping the lights on, keeping food on the table versus getting them some J's, which I think, I'm not even sure if there's a real life example of someone buying a pair of J's and then getting kicked out of their apartment the next day because they couldn't afford the rent because they used that rent money to buy J's. I know that's an example we use all the time. I'm not sure if that even exists, but just as a parent overall, be reasonable, know your child, know what you can afford, and, just case by case scenario. You shouldn't be, sacrificing your car note or the electricity bill to get them a fresh fit.
Yeah. And there's a old saying in the Black community that say, stop counting my pockets. So, get out of folks' pockets. It's one of those things that, like Buff said, if they lights on and they want to work 3 jobs and get the kids all that stuff, man, that's on them. Yeah. That's really on them. They grinding it out so that they can get the kids what they feel is, what the kids want or need. And sometimes those parents' love language is gifts like that anyway. So that's another part of it, is that parent is gifting this stuff to the kids because it makes them feel good to give it to the children. And that's another part you got to kind of think through.
And that's why I was asking, are parents obligated? Because I feel like are they doing is there an obligation to do that? Or is it more, okay.
But I think there's pressure. I think there is pressure to do it, especially unfortunately in like poorer areas. I think there's more pressure than it is in some of the higher end, because there's kind of this going thing now where, in places with more money, they want to see how inexpensive they can be, right? Or like, oh, I've had these for 7 years now, or this is my 3rd year with these sneakers or whatever. So there's kind of that trend going on too. Or, I thrifted this stuff, and so, I got this whole outfit for $10 or some junk. So there's that trend going on too.
So Rozzy, I want to clarify. Were you speaking hypothetically, or would you consider spending money if it meant your child not getting bullied? Would you consider spending money on a name brand clothing item or something so Sophie or Ali, or when Haley was younger, wouldn't get bullied?
I wouldn't, because like I was talking about, I teach emotional intelligence. I teach if somebody's bullying you because you don't have something, that's their problem, not yours. But again, it's hard for me because I'm not in that situation, right? I'm not in a situation where I can't get something for my kids.
And that's not going to work on a bully.
Well, I know it's not, but I mean, again, going back to emotional intelligence, right? It's like, unless they put their hands on you, and they can be over there and they can talk all that junk or whatever. It's their issue that they have with you. Can you emotionally get through it? What is the thing that you need to do to get through it? That's not me going and buy stuff so that you can conform so they don't bully you. It's how do you stop the bully? So it's addressing the bully. It's not addressing what they're bullying you for.
Okay. And so the reason I chose to use the word obligation and you talked about teaching. I think sometimes these are patterns where somebody's parents work these 2-3 jobs for the same reasons we said above to create this image or this lifestyle for their kids. In doing this, sometimes don't teach them other things about, emotional intelligence, fiscal responsibility and stuff like that. So they find themselves in similar situations. And because mom did this or dad did this exact same thing for me, now I feel obligated to do this for my kids and, to do the same thing. And because I've had the friends, family members I've seen, especially when the parent did that for them, that grandparent's going to spoil and put that same pressure on their, well, I did this for you. Mm-hmm. I know people that the grandparents, And
it goes to the parents' priorities, right? Like a lot of times those parents that are doing that for the kids are the same ones that's spending that on their fit. They're the ones that they got to be fresh to death and they don't have any extra money or whatever. True. So, it's the priorities and the lens that parent is looking through, as well as the pressure from the society and where the kid is in school or whatever. So I think all of that plays into it.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can be almost a curse. I mean, you've been taught this way. This is how you were raised. You're taught, and so you continue to do it for yourself and maybe put yourself in a bad financial situation. You have kids and you continue to do it for them and potentially put yourself in a bad financial situation. And you're teaching this culture of mom and dad were fresh to death. I was fresh to death. My kid's going to be fresh to death. They going to do all this stuff, yada, yada, yada. And they might not, the lights might not get cut off, but they're borrowing money here and there, burning bridges to make things happen. Yeah. I've seen those situations. I'm not saying this happens all the time.
They're living check to check, don't have any retirement savings or savings in general, don't have an emergency fund, don't have retirement, don't have any of those stuff. They're not financially stable. So they may not be destitute to the point where, like you said, the lights are getting cut out and they're getting put out, but they aren't financially stable enough to be spending that $1,000 there when they could be putting it somewhere else. Definitely agree there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know how you guys with the pressures of people dealing with those kind of things. So, and
that pressure is real too. That's not something you can downplay. It's real. You definitely have to actively stiff arm it, man.
And Byron, you made some good points too when it was like, we're looking at, there's tiers to this shit, being in certain, being middle class or whatever. Yeah, you can afford to go buy your kids those J's or whatever, but there's next level shit. Mm-hmm. You go to the wrong school, your kids are wearing J's. If they're not wearing the
limiteds and the StockX hard to get ones, it's like it don't matter. I was like, oh, you went to Foot Locker and bought those off the shelf?
My butler wears those. But there's going to be situations where, depending on the lifestyle your kids lead, even when they get older, going to college and they're around people who might have more money and stuff like that, are they going to feel the pressure to and that their lifestyle that they were content with isn't up to par, and now you got to get them the nicest car and you got to get them the nicest clothes, and you look up and the credit card bill is maxed out because Ali and Sophie and Haley then maxed everything out trying to live up to this lifestyle.